Over the course of more than 5,000 years, tomb raiders have ravaged Egypt's royal cemeteries, with one notable exception: the Silver Pharaoh's tomb, which is guarded by a solid silver casket. Even though its discovery has been widely reported, many details remain unknown. Tomb appeared just as World War II broke out around the globe. The history of Pharaoh Psusennes I is only now coming into focus. During the time that Egypt was split in half between north and south, he was a resident of Tanis. Archaeologists have recently re-examined the city and tomb using the original excavation's source material, and a doctor has analyzed the pharaoh's remains once again, and they found something mysterious. Wanna find out? Then stay tuned to A Secret World. Adolf Hitler had advanced into Europe in February 1940. Egypt was far from the battlefield, but at Tanis in the Delta, a French team that had been digging for more than a decade found themselves under increasing pressure as the war approached. French archaeologist Pierre Montet oversaw the excavations. Montet dug at Tanis in the hopes of discovering a link to the Holy Land. Throughout the 1930s, the team discovered the remains of a vast temple dedicated to Ammon, which was guarded by a massive mud brick wall, behind which Montet suspected tombs could be discovered. An enormous tomb complex was discovered near a mud brick wall in the southwest corner, revealing a series of burial chambers. However, the worst fears were confirmed during the initial investigations of the first of the clearly royal tombs, because there was a hole in the roof, implying that tomb robbers had entered it. The 22nd Dynasty, 3rd Intermediate Period. Royal Tomb of Osorkon II was dated around 850 BC. Montet, undeterred, directed that the excavation be extended to about 10 yards away. A second tomb complex was discovered alongside the one that had been ransacked. On the 15th of February, the team discovered what appeared to be an intact tomb, and it is surprising that the tomb robbers missed it given its proximity to the others. Montet entered the antechamber and discovered the cartouches of Psusennes I, a virtually unknown pharaoh who reigned from around 1047 to 1001 BC. Psusennes is the Hellenized version of the name. In ancient Egyptian, his names were Pespakaniad Akapera Setapenamen, meaning the star appearing in the city. Great are the manifestations of Re, chosen of Ammon. He was the son of Pharaoh Psusennes, the founder of the 21st Dynasty, 3rd Intermediate Period. Psusennes I ruled in the north of Egypt, while the majority of real wealth and power were concentrated in the south. So, who were the kings of the north? Montet had the opportunity to learn more about this enigmatic period in the north. When Montet discovered the tomb, it was still tightly sealed with a block of granite, which took 6 days to shatter. When they entered the tomb, they found it filled with marvels worthy of 1001 nights, including objects of great beauty and value. There was no sign of a mummy or casket at first because they were sealed within a massive stone sarcophagus that nearly filled the chamber and was sculpted and covered in hieroglyphs. Only the lid weighed half a ton. Another stone sarcophagus within it was richly carved, and removing it took another 6 days to find the inner casket. The casket was kept sealed until King Pharaoh of Egypt visited on February 28th, so that Pharaoh could witness its opening. When they revealed the final coffin, they were met with a solid silver casket that was completely unique. Psusennes wore a solid gold death mask within the remarkable silver casket. Huge quantities of lapis lazuli, imported from Afghanistan and extremely valuable, were also discovered in the tomb. The value of the objects is not only in the precious metals, but also in the craftsmanship. The wealth of the tomb, the silver coffin, and the golden mask demonstrated that this was no ordinary warlord or regional ruler, but rather a powerful individual with considerable wealth. Montet had only a few days to investigate the contents of the tomb because Hitler was about to invade France. He ordered the tomb to be closed, returned to France, and would not return for another 5 years. The items were relocated to the Cairo Museum for safekeeping. In 1940, Douglas Derry, who had previously examined Tutankhamun's remains, was asked to examine the king's remains. Because of the delta's wetness, which decayed the body, the remains were severely damaged. Derry's analysis appears to have been somewhat cursory, as he missed a lot of evidence despite pointing out that the pharaoh died an old man. For 70 years, his bones were stored, almost forgotten, but Dirkfazi Gabala recently reviewed the remains to determine the pharaoh's state of health and lifestyle. The soft tissue had all vanished, but the bones revealed that the pharaoh stood 5 feet 5 inches, weighed 13 stone, and was powerfully built. He died a very old man, possibly close to 80 years old, at a time when the average lifespan was around 35 years old. An examination of his teeth confirmed these findings. Psusennes reigned for 46 years, making him one of the longest reigning pharaohs, and he was able to make a difference. One of the pharaoh's vertebrae had fractured in a way that usually indicates strenuous upper limb work. John Privet, an archaeologist and silversmith, examined the silver casket. Silver is harder and less malleable than gold, and it must be heated periodically to remain workable. The craftsmanship was far more difficult than that required for working with gold. In total, 200 pounds of pure silver were used, some of which was formed into sheets so thin and delicate that they were damaged during the casket removal. Other elements were cast. The silver casket is one of the Egyptian museum's greatest treasures. The turmoil that existed during Psusennes' reign was planted over 200 years before by Ramesses II. Prior to Ramesses II, the only two important cities were Thebes, Luxor in Upper Egypt, and Memphis, near Cairo in Lower Egypt. Ramesses II established a new capital in the Nile Delta at Parames, near Cantor. This may have thrown Egypt off kilter following his reign. The trouble started in Thebes, where the only figure with enough power to challenge a pharaoh was the high priest of Karnak, a political and business leader. Kings would gain the favor of the priests, who were in charge of afterlife care, by bestowing wealth on them and elevating them to positions of such power that they could eventually challenge the pharaohs for power. The south was seized by a high priest, and the pharaoh was exiled to the delta with a checkpoint at Memphis. Montet began to suspect Tanis was Parames and went on record saying so, owing to the discovery of stones bearing the names of Ramesses II at the site. But Montet had made a blunder. His theory sounded plausible because Tanis was a riverside city, as records show Parames was as well. However, the Nile had many delta branches that moved over time due to flooding and siltation, so Montet's findings were eventually called into question. Instead, 15 miles away, new evidence pointed to a long-forgotten branch of the Nile where Ramesside pottery was discovered, and ground-penetrating radar was used to uncover the foundations of a massive city complex complete with temple, military installations, stables, and a plethora of other structures. An ancient city lay beneath today's crops. It is believed that the Nile became so silted up that it changed course, leaving Parames literally high and dry and unsustainable. So Psusennes had the great temples dismantled and relocated 15 kilometers away to Tanis, an incredible feat that demonstrated his organization and authority. Alright, that's pretty much it for this one. Don't miss our future updates. Subscribe now. Also, you can check out our channel for more mysterious and thrilling content. See you in the next one.